join me in welcoming her.
Thank you. It's a pleasure actually to be here and to have, I was just sharing with her, I can barely make my students come to my class. So this is really, really impressive for you to be here. I was asked to talk about, like games, playfulness in terms of my discipline. And yes, my discipline actually tackled playfulness, tackled gamification, and tackled more of individual differences and how we react to our surrounding and to technology. So this is going to be more about computer playfulness, individual attributes, burnout at the workplace. Let me tell you, my goal here is not just to introduce you about research on playfulness or about the IT industry. I'll focus on the IT industry because this is my industry. My goal here is actually to raise awareness, let me put it this way, and you'll understand why it's about raising awareness about all of these and about the individual differences. So my focus is the individual differences, but I will tap into playfulness and gamification in IT. So what is computer playfulness? Computer playfulness research actually started around 2005. It's not new. It's something that we tackled in the IT discipline. It is about how we enjoy interacting with technology and what are the consequences of such interaction. Playfulness could be a trait or a state. Do you know what's the difference between a trait and a state? Anybody want to make a guess? Yes, please.
Trait is like a long-term state, basically. State is just like short-term, I'm happy, and then the trait is like, I'm a happy person, I'm happy generally all the time.
Correct. So, again, a trait, it takes time to change. A state, it really depends on the moment that you are in. And this is crucial for us to distinguish between these two, because when we design IT, we keep in mind the user, right? Because after all, we are building this IT for a user to adopt it and to use it fully, its full features, right? So, the research on computer playfulness provided proof or showed that actually playfulness can lead to flow, which is an important state where you are deeply into that thinking when you are interacting with technology. Can you name a situation that you experience when you go into flow, when you are dealing with technology? Yes, please.
When I'm familiar with the program, because I'm a graphic designer, so I definitely get into like a creative flow when I'm in a program that's either very intuitive or I'm really comfortable using that program. I get into where I don't have to go like, oh, where is that? How do I do that? I just know how to do it and I can get my work done and I'm kind of in this like groove.
Exactly. You feel you are more innovative, you are more productive, and you are actually enjoying. So when we talk about playfulness, the first thing that comes to mind is enjoyment. It is crucial, this kind of state, because actually when you are enjoying or you perceive enjoyment in interacting with technology, it means that you will use that technology, you will try to experiment and explore that technology, right? Why it is important for organizations that their employees go through or they have computer playfulness. It is important because if I'm investing in technology for my employees to use it, if I'm an organization, I want them to use that technology to its fullest. It means to use its full features, right? I mean, we know of a lot of technology that maybe we use, and because we're not really that familiar with the technology, or maybe because we're not fully understanding or fully adopting the technology, we don't use its full features, which means that organizations are spending time in a technology that the users are not using its full potential. So, again, as I said, playful users are more, have a tendency to be more innovative. They have a tendency to, are you familiar with the term technostress? It's a stress that is resulting from interacting and using technology, right? Because one of the technostress features, for instance, techno overload, which means because we don't have a clear boundary between work and home, for instance, right? We bring our phone with us. Guess what? For me, I have all of my emails, my work email, my personal email on my phone. So even if I receive an email at 9 p.m., I'll still look at it, right? So technology is invading our home. It's invading, making the boundaries between work and home or work and leisure really very, very fluid. So which can cause stress. That is why computer playfulness, one of the benefits of it, of that feature, of that state, of that trait, is that actually it reduces technostress, which is the stress resulting from interacting and using technology. Any questions so far? Have you heard about computer playfulness before? Yes, please.
Oh, I've heard a little bit about it, saying that computer playfulness, such as like for gaming design, things like that,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like saying with the flow, the more you get into it, the more you find these things are stressful, to where you can actually set yourself a boundary and enjoy the playfulness at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Again, right, this is a great example. She talked about gamers. Gamers are the perfect example for the state of flow, right? They are really in that zone where, I'm not gonna say they are one with technology, but actually they're kind of disconnected from their environment, from their surrounding, because they are in that state where they have deep connection with the technology that they are using. You had something more to add? Yes, please.
So, I haven't heard of this specific term, but this makes me just think of UI design, of UX design, in the sense of when you sit at your desk, eventually you'll have everything arranged in the way that's most convenient for you. Or you won't if you're a disaster like me. But that's the idea. And generationally, as we enter this digital age more and more, people expect that intuitive thing to be built into their software. And that's what I'm thinking when we're looking at this. Like, obviously, if things are not developed in that, like, generationally intuitive way, where everyone is expecting, this is how I'm going to interface with this. It's the same as, like, it's going to be a lot harder for you to write a research paper if you're doing it on a Mac when you use a PC and vice versa.
Correct.
And so you would immediately have more techno stress.
Exactly, exactly. So again, right, computer playfulness is really important for technology designers. Because if they want that technology to be adopted, to have more people engaging in it, to sell more, especially in organizational setting, they need to keep the user in mind. They need to provide that sense for the user when they are interacting with the technology. Again, so it reduces technostress, and actually the ultimate goal, especially for organizations, the ultimate goal is that if they are investing in technology, and again, it costs a lot to buy any system, right? It costs a lot to invest in IT infrastructure and all of that. But again, for system use, the ultimate goal for organizations is that if they're gonna invest in that technology, they want the user, they want the employees actually to adopt it, not to have workaround about it and not use it and use something else. For instance, if they bought an accounting system or I don't know what system, they want the employees to use it and not go and use Excel and find what they want to find and not interact with that. Or just use one or two features of that system. They want the employees to use the full range of features, and the more they use the features, it means actually the return on investment in that technology is justified, right? How would organization make a decision whether to buy or to move to any digital transformation or to any digital technology, new technology. It is about that I want to make sure that my employees are buying it, not buying into using it, right? About adopting it as well. So again, the ultimate goal is that to have a positive attitude towards the IT systems and about adopting, which is, we call it technology adoption. Another concept that I want to discuss, which is gamification, right? Can you think of an example of gamification? Gamification, which is, it's using games element in a non-game context. Yes, please.
So we just had an update to D2L, I think it was, where now it's like, oh, you got 100 on the quiz, yay! And it's like that kind of like, ooh, it's an achievement. And so that's one example that everyone may or may not have seen.
Yes, please. Thank you.
I also think of the language app, it's pretty popular recently, Duolingo,
Mm-hmm.
and how sometimes your social media will find engaging tricks and mysteries to get people to engage more.
Mm-hmm.
And those quests are actually pretty fun, but you're learning at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yes, please.
The Finch app that gamifies self-care.
Okay.
It's funny.
Can you tell me more?
I have it's like a gigapet. It's like a little pet bird that I take care of, and it like thrives if I drink water and get out of bed and like eat healthy and things. It's really cute, and you can like check off when you do things and watch the bird grow up and make friends, and it's like fun.
Okay. I do this with my son. There is the penguin. Anybody is raising? I'm raising a penguin with my son. And I feel, you too? Isn't it cool? I mean, it's,
Pingu is the name.
yeah.
Okay, I have to look that up.
I'm stuck. I'm not sure I'm enjoying it, but I'm stuck because my son wants me to do so.
He's so needy. The penguin is.
I know. He want to cuddle and you need to rub the belly.
Yeah, but only 5 times.
Yeah.
And then he says that's enough.
Maybe mine is more needy, I'm not sure. Yes, go ahead.
I think back to elementary school where they made a lot of lessons more so games. Like, oh, you gotta count the different colors and then you get like a sticker or, you know, stuff like that. I think too a lot of elementary school lessons were kind of more like, oh, let's play games.
She mentioned a very, very important, I would say, keyword. They get a sticker. If you do a task, you get a sticker. Like, I mean, that back in the days. In the digital world, what do you get?
Achievements.
You get like stars.
Yeah.
And then you see, you reach levels. Go ahead.
Oh, I work at Panera, and whenever we get new menu items, they make us play on these iPads like a game version of the new menu, and we have to like get points, and once we learn, it's like once you learn enough about the new menu and you get like 3 stars, then you can stop playing the game.
Exactly, right? So even like, have anybody like use Stack Overflow, Super User, those platforms? Right, you have users, like if you answer 10 questions, you are at bronze level. And you have, I don't know how many points, you have badges. So the badges, the stars, the levels, all of these are gaming components that are applied in non-game setting. So this is what we mean by gamification. So it targets the extrinsic, but also the intrinsic motivation for users, right? So what's the key finding? It's about user engagement, whether it's computer playfulness or about gamification. The end goal is the user. It is their engagement, their adoption of IT, and their attitude toward IT. But the effectiveness depends on the context, and this is what I want to highlight. It depends on the context, it depends on user attributes. Again, there is no one size that fits all. What application? I mean, I know we mentioned a little bit of the application of gamification and computer playfulness. We see that in education, right? Like you said about Duolingo and all of that. Another area that we see that about the workplace productivity, in some areas, they will have like 2 teams in a unit or department. I'm saying, okay, if you sell more, you guys are the gold team. And then this is how they do the hierarchy. Or in the IT field, actually, usually what they implement for users, they will ask them, if you don't contact ITD, which is the IT department, and you do self-service, if you face an IT problem and you try to do it on your own, they will account how many times you ask for the ITD help, and the unit that win, right, like the gold status, are those with the lowest contact with the ITD. Again, the whole idea is how I can have more the user or the employee to do what I want them to do, but instead of just providing monetary motivation or rewards, I'm using gamification to reach what I want. Another aspect is, as I said, technology adoption. Technology adoption is crucial because organizations are paying a lot of money in that technology. And the technology will only be successful is as long as the user is using it, correct? Any questions so far? Okay. So, what are the challenges? 2 things. Sustainability. We know that whenever a new product, a new idea comes to life, we all jump on it, right? Why? Because of novelty. So novelty usually is the key attractor or the key that is driving the user behavior. But what happened after a year, 2 years, if the same thing is happening? How the IT can still attract the user to be engaged? Or how the program that the organization is adopting can still be key in driving employees' behavior. So sustainability is key. That is why you'll see a lot of innovation is happening in the last few years. Technology is fast evolving. Why? Because one of the things is novelty, how we can drive, users are changing. I don't know who mentioned about generational differences, the users. Every generation has their own mindset. You cannot, whatever was invented or adopted or proven to be successful 10 years ago, it doesn't work now because it is talking to a different mindset, talking to a different generation. And each generation has their own characteristics. Another challenge is, as I mentioned when I started this lecture, is individual differences, right? Each one of us is unique. What drives us, what motivates us, what our perception of IT is different. So that is why computer playfulness, that is why gamification, it doesn't really, it's not a remedy for all users. It's not, it doesn't speak to every single person. Even here in this classroom, we're what, like 30? We're unique. What motivates you is going to be different than what motivates your colleague. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about I'm going to zoom in one specific individual characteristic or individual difference, which is called autistic tendency. Let me just make it clear. I'm not talking here about autism. I'm talking about autistic tendency. This research was published in 2022 in our #1 leading journal. It's called Management Information System Quarterly, MSQ. And that research actually provided proof that we, as individuals, we fall, or we all have, especially those attracted to IT, they have what's called autistic tendency, meaning that we prefer, because I'm IT as well, we prefer more interaction with systems. The way we think is more on the systemizing than emphasizing. So we're good more with systems than we're good with people. And this is just to simplify it, right? So this research actually collected data from individuals that are attracted to IT majors, and they found that they scored high on that scale, and it provided proof. The study was between the US and India, and it provided proof that all of these people who are attracted to IT, they scored really high on autistic tendency, which means that people prefer systems, people prefer structure, and they don't do well. I mean, they do good, but not well with dealing with people. That is why they say actually individuals who are in the IT profession, they're more introvert than extrovert, beside me. So emphasizing actually is the way we understand and predict the social world, right? And it is a trait. Another thing is that accordingly, people with high autistic tendency are associated with hyper-systemizing along with impaired emphasizing, meaning that we score higher on systemizing than the other one. Our brain is wired to have two, and this is according to the theory. We have systemizing and emphasizing. But those who are attracted to IT, they have one more dominant, which is the systemizing, which make the other side of how our brain is wired weaker. So those who have autistic tendency, they have communication skills difficulty. By saying that, I'm not saying that they cannot talk to people, no. But what I'm saying is that they prefer not to interact and communicate with people. What I'm saying is that in the case that they actually talk and communicate with people, that will cause them stress, which is a regular person or non-IT person will not feel the same stress just from communicating with people. Those with high autistic tendency, they will experience stress from communicating, from social communicating. Also, they have a heightened sense to attention to details. They love to read and get details about what they are dealing with in terms of the system. Okay? And also they have an orientation toward technicity and a preference for structure, meaning that they have low communication, they prefer not to, they have a tendency to more anything that is technical, and they love details, and they love structure. Okay? Any questions? Let me ask you this. When you think about, and I said that, right, social communication for those with high levels of autistic tendency, they suffer from exhaustion, burnout, and stress. But the way so far, the way research talked about exhaustion, they talked about emotional exhaustion, which just cover how emotionally you are drained, how emotionally you are exhausted. So far, research did not really mention, especially for IT professionals, they did not measure burnout or exhaustion based on other aspects of exhaustion. Have you ever felt, let me ask you this, have you ever felt that you are so exhausted that physically you really cannot get out of bed? Mm-hmm. Right? What about mentally you felt you really cannot think properly, or that's it, I cannot think anymore. I need a break. I'm so exhausted, right? So based on my research, this is exactly what I thought about. And I looked, because before moving to academia, I was an IT professional myself. And this is exactly what I felt whenever I'm so exhausted from work. I felt I couldn't get out of bed. So exhaustion can affect you emotionally, physically, and mentally, right? Like sometimes you feel that's it. No, I can't. I need something simple to think about. I don't want to think about more complex problems and all of that. So I proposed in my new research is that it is time, because people change. When they developed exhaustion in psychology, it was more about teachers. And it was in the 80s. Then they revised the scale. Do you know when I talk about scales? So the scale, it means how we measure a certain phenomenon, right? So the way that they developed it was in the 80s, then they revised it in the early 2000s. But guess what? What is the most fast-changing thing that we are witnessing in nowadays? Technology, right? Think about AI. Anybody is able to keep up with what's going on?
Barely.
Exactly, barely, right? So if this generation of people, of IT professionals, are experiencing things that was not experienced 40 years ago, it means the experiences that they are feeling and they are facing must be different. We are different people, right? I don't look, I don't feel, I don't experience the same thing that an IT professional 40 years ago experienced. Guess what? Whoever is gonna come in next year, 10 years, they're gonna feel different. They're gonna experience different things because of technology, because of the environment, because of the landscape, because of, like remote work, right? I mean, the changing nature of work is being affected with the technological advancement. So all of these make our experiences different. We cannot just claim, yes, IT professionals, this is how we measured their exhaustion 40 years ago. It means it applies nowadays. We cannot say that. So I'm proposing that actually exhaustion and what employees experience in the workplace in terms of IT should be broadened. So instead of just looking at their emotional exhaustion, we need to look holistically and include the physical part and the mental part. And this is my research, and this is what I did. So I came up with the word holistic exhaustion, and I wanted to make sure that when we study and when we advise organizations and when we study employees in organizations, we look at not just their emotional exhaustion, but also consider their physical and mental state as well. So, as I said, for the autistic tendency and exhaustion, that mainly the exhaustion that IT professionals are experiencing, and this is what I worked on, that their exhaustion actually is driven not by the characteristics of the IT profession. I know the job can be exhausting, but there are things that are born with us, such as the autistic tendency, that by itself, from within you, is creating the exhaustion, right? I know there are added exhaustion that we can drive from the environment, but also there is things that we are born with that can cause us the exhaustion. And one of those individual characteristics is autistic tendency. So what is the outcome and why I am talking about autistic tendency, exhaustion, burnout, and all of that? It is because those IT professionals who are experiencing or who are characterized by a heightened sense of autistic tendency, they do experience exhaustion differently than other people. And the results of that is that two options. Either they're gonna leave the organization or they're gonna leave the industry as a whole and move to another industry. They will leave their job as an IT professional and maybe work as, I don't know, a songwriter. They will move to Nashville, right? But why this is important? Because to start with, filling job vacancies in IT is challenging for organizations. They are paying a lot of money to recruit you, to hire you, the onboarding, the whole 9 yards. It is a lot of money. And if they're gonna hire IT professionals and they're gonna lose them in a year, they are losing money when people turn over. So there is a cost for turnover to organizations. There is a cost for turnover. Turnover is when an IT professional leave the IT industry to another industry. There is a cost to the industry, there is a cost to the organization. That is why studying those individual differences is important. That is why it is important actually to inform organizations what they can do to help those people. And why I'm talking to you about that, I wanted to give a slack for people who are working next to you, because you don't know what makes them unique. You don't know what makes them different, right? If they're not great at social communication, that's fine, right? Just be considerate, especially in the workplace or even here on campus. Be considerate that they have their own struggles, and I'm talking about those with autistic tendency. I took the scale, actually. I scored high, but I don't know why I'm very extrovert, not really introvert. So some people, this is how we are born, right? It's not something that I acquired because I'm an IT professional, but this is how my brain is wired. And if people are next to you are not good at, social communication, or not good at social settings, or, feel stressed because being in a crowd and public speaking and whatever it is, just remember that we are all unique and we all have our own struggles. So we are all unique, not what size fits all, never, right? Because of our uniqueness. Playfulness, gamification is great. I know we spend a lot of time in designing an IT, but again, it does not really motivate all users the same way. And this is where organizations need to step in and actually tailor some programs for those employees that need more motivation, or especially if they don't like social communication, or they don't prefer social communication, maybe to move them into more technical jobs where they don't really need to interact that much. That is why organizations, and especially managing directors, to have a more understanding of their employees if they want to actually try to retain them and not lose them. Any questions? Yes, please.
So looking at the notion of higher levels of holistic exhaustion, and as it relates to autistic tendency, do you see much crossover between that concept and this earlier, what you were talking about with just the technology field in general, the sustainability of playfulness and the challenges that you see within that? Is there crossover between those levels of exhaustion, and as the technological world is growing and attention spans in general are decreasing, do you think that there's a lot of intersection there?
So this is actually a great question, because this is my next project. I want to see is what would work for those with high autistic tendency. Is gamification should look different, and what elements of gamification really works for them. Computer playfulness, I know one of the things is going into a state of flow, do they really experience computer playfulness, or because they are generally attracted to technology, to systems, to technicity, to all of these, do they by nature, this is how God created them, that actually whenever they interact with computers, do they automatically go into flow? Right? So computer playfulness does not really play a role because this is how they are wired, not because of how the technology is designed. So definitely I see the interaction. We don't have research about it, but this is what I want to prove. So this is a great observation and great question. Thank you so much. Yes, please.
So the theory is that we want organizations to take a look at like each person on the individual level. So when we do that, is like the goal to design the work process differently, like based off of that for like every individual person, like give them options of how to do things, change the programs towards their own personal attributes? Is that kind of where this is heading?
So job crafting, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is because there are something specific about the IT industry. There are a lot of vacant jobs that organizations are not able to fill, right? And I'm saying like, hey, maybe you are losing and you're not able to fill these jobs because you're not paying attention to the exhaustion. And if they're not measuring exhaustion by including the physical and the mental, and I tested that, if organizations don't include the physical and the mental when they are measuring the exhaustion of individuals, guess what? They cannot identify that they are exhausted because of the social communication, right? So that is why it's very important, especially the director usually they know, or the head of unit, usually they know the employees better based on the interaction. If you have an employee that exhibits such a behavior, just move them to more technical. If this is their happy zone, if this is their flow zone, right? And it is good to have a pulse check about employees' exhaustion. And what I recommend organizations is actually and they should measure exhaustion to include the physical and the mental part, because if they don't do so, they will really miss a part of what is really making the employees exhausted and why they are leaving the organizations. Great question. Yes, please.
So I know there's a lot of just like general society talk over concern of automation and AI replacing people's jobs and those kinds of things, but I'm looking at it from the other perspective of in 1920, we had a pretty significant subset of the population that is consistent throughout time, that is intellectually, like significantly impaired intellectually, but they're still functional to a degree. So they could work as someone who sweeps floors, mops things with some guidance, work at a family-owned business, something like that. But now we have entered this digital age where even our most base level jobs require some amount of technological interaction, where you have time clocks you need to punch in and those sorts of things, or if you're working a register, you're interfacing with a modem. You have to have knowledge of like, oh, now we're switching to EWIC instead of manual check entry. And I'm wondering, do you see potential for technology to advance to a point where it develops this intuitive interface that can actually simplify things and provide new job opportunities to this population subset who was considered like ineligible, only disability?
That's a great question. I don't have an answer, but
Just your opinion.
my opinion is that, again, I'm going to switch gears actually to specifically talk about AI, right? I think a lot of the things are going to change. AI is going to enhance us as human beings, enhance our capabilities. Do I see it to be employed in this area? Definitely. Do I think we're going to have a silver bullet that's going to solve everything? I don't think so. But it's going to be a step toward that, definitely. Somebody, yes?
Is this why big companies' offices like Google, Apple, and Microsoft have like playgrounds or free breakfast other type of fun stuff to engage their employees maybe, because the work is hard and they actually acknowledge that. And like I guess some companies, I don't know, maybe it's their way to de-stress their employees.
Definitely, we call it workplace design, right? You will have mini golf, you will have, if you go to Bridgestone here in Nashville, actually they have a small mini golf. I think it's on their 7th floor or something. So yes, it is called the workplace design, and it definitely does alleviate some of the stress. Another related concept to what you are talking about, it is work-life balance. You heard of that, right? So, again, the theories of work-life balance has evolved. Usually they will say, yes, people used to go to factory, once they check out, they check out. You cannot really bring work to home. Nowadays, the boundaries is so mingled, is so fluid, you cannot really have that clear segmentations of your life versus, actually, they didn't have work life, it was work family, right? Because again, assumed everybody is married, they have kids, whatever, things has changed. Now we move toward work-life balance, more of not really segmentation, but integration. So the way I interpret it is that they want to add more of a life aspect to the workplace, right? And for them to consider the work as a lifestyle. You hear that a lot. I don't want to work, I don't want to do a job, right? I want to have a life, and I want to have a lifestyle. So having that shift in the mindset from just a job to a lifestyle, it does improve productivity, and it improves commitment. Commitment, it means your desire to stay, which leads to your desire to stay at the organizations. Again, when companies hire you, they are investing in you. And when you leave, the organization loses part of its knowledge, right? Because you take that knowledge with you. To hire another person and, to have that learning curve and invest in that and then leave, just imagine the cycle. It is a waste of money, waste of talent, and waste of knowledge. Did I answer your question? Yes, please.
How much of the issue between like the person in the organization match and the person in the job match do you think is because of the like recruitment process in general, and just maybe being dishonest in the recruitment process, not giving an actual representation of what their job is? Like maybe they could be happy in the field, but the organization itself didn't do a good enough job of accurately representing.
From my own perspective, is that usually like a fresh graduate is happy to get a job. He wouldn't be, right? They miss on a very important aspect, and this is something I talk to my students about, which is the culture, right? You need to know the culture of the organization. If I were you, I would read the social media, I would read their involvement in the community, their engagement in the community. Because, again, I know we're fed up with hearing what's happening or what happened because of COVID, but I'm going to be one of those who say, because of COVID, people got a chance to pause and think about their priorities. People nowadays, they don't want just to work. They want life fulfillment. Really, people has changed from after COVID to before COVID. We are not the same. We are not just satisfied to have a job. We need a culture in the organization that looks like us, that fulfill our life as well. That is why you will see more and more organizations do employee groups that are engaged in the community, that they do stuff outside of work, right? Because again, we need more of our job. We don't want a job, we want life, right? So this is my take. Yes, please.
So I've seen like a guest lecture video that spoke about how important it is to develop a culture of data literacy within an organization that penetrates down to even like the base level staff. And I thought that that seemed very aspirational, and in my experience it is. I don't think I've been in a company yet that practices that. But from a realistic perspective, there are always going to be gaps between decision makers and then the people who are actually looking at the metrics, at the performance data, and saying, you know, this really is my recommendation. And in order to kind of bridge those communication gaps, do you know of anyone who's like published a systematized like approach, or is it really just we're relying on like coherent visual storytelling still?
So your question is about if there is research
On taking a systemic approach, like something that's like very clearly, this is a good way to outline how we communicate this data information to a higher and lower tiers of an organization. So that we can make better decisions, so that we can have better work motivation, all that kind of stuff.
So data representations that's gonna drive decision making.
Right, that isn't so driven on visual storytelling.
Definitely there must be. I'm not familiar with that field. So, I'm sorry. It seems that whatever you ask, I don't have a clear answer, but I would say, yeah, because it makes sense. I know back in the days, before I even do my PhD, there is a paper that is published that talked about, again, it's gonna sound silly, but back then maybe it was a great idea and it's published, about how to represent data for a better decision making, and talked about whether to present data in a tabular form in Excel, right? Is it landscape, what the table looks like? I think this is what you're gonna alluding to. So I would say yes, but that type of research that was, I think, 30, 40 years ago. I'm sure now there is more recent work that address that, but I'm not familiar with. Yes, please.
That sounds like a IO psychology. Yeah. Which is a subfield of psychology that deals with the workplace. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you. Yes, please.
So, would you think this is a good example of autistic tendency in kind of IT work? So my mom, she works for the state of Tennessee in tax revenue. She used to work in an office building in downtown Nashville, but when COVID did start, they moved remote, so everybody was working from home. And although she like did enjoy working at the workplace, she saw people every day. They apparently were like, you guys are more productive when you're at home, so we're gonna keep it online. So she's been working online ever since. Do you think that's a good example of like autistic tendency, like kind of changing the workforce once they got that realization that productivity did go up?
I would say not really, but there is another explanation for that. It's more about flexibility, it's more about autonomy, it's more about preferences, right? And yes, guess what? Before COVID, I hate when people talk about COVID, but actually, before COVID, yes, we used to go to work every single day, right? We go actually physically to the workplace. When we moved online, people panicked. Oh my God, how I'm gonna move online, how I'm gonna, do the work, how I'm gonna balance. I'm at home, we're using the same Wi-Fi. I'm worried about how I'm gonna deal with my partner, how I'm gonna deal with the kids, with the pets, all of that. But guess what? The COVID experience was I know it was very bad, but it was very enriching for us as human beings, as workers, as the future workforce. It was very enriching in a way that Can we work online? Heck yeah, we can do that. Can we be successful? Yes. Can we be innovative? Yes. Can we be productive? Yes. Can we become tech savvy? Yes. You don't have to be an IT professional to set up your home office. Guess what? We all went through it and we all did it because of COVID. So COVID pushed us to be more tech savvy. COVID pushed us to appreciate flexibility, right? I hear a lot, or I read a lot about nowadays that people are looking for, what is the most feature that they look for in the work? It is flexibility. It's not just about the salary. Salary is not the only way to attract talent to any organization. People want flexibility. People want to travel. They want to be digital nomad. They want to live, I don't know, in Honolulu and work from there at the beach. They want to enjoy life. Life became more important because I'm sure every one of us know of someone who has somebody died because of COVID. We appreciate life more, right? So we want life. We appreciate life as much as we appreciate a job. We used to appreciate our career, our job more, but this has shifted. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Just a second, go ahead.
So I see like people talking on social media and kind of pre-COVID where there was almost like a fight for having a work-life balance, for having a good work culture, and there was kind of not, companies and organizations were kind of not putting that at a priority or prioritizing the individual's experience. Do you feel like that's become easier? Like companies are now focusing more on how their individual employees are feeling, and it's less of a fight to be valued, considered, like your personal well-being to be considered and valued? Or do you think we're still gonna have to fight for that?
I think organizations, they are profit-seeking, right? They want to extract any extra added value from you. They want to give you X amount of money, but they want to extract as many from you as an employee. But, and this is my personal opinion, right? Especially in the IT field, because I don't know about other fields, especially in the IT field, there are certain jobs that the turnover, they say the average job tenure meaning that the time that you spend with a certain organization. For an IT professional, the average job tenure is 18 months.
Oh, wow.
Exactly. So IT professionals are known to be job hopping. It means they don't stay in the same organizations more than 2 years. And this is detrimental for the organizations because they losing the knowledge. It's hard to fill jobs, and this is based on the Bureau of Labor of Statistics. Every year, I don't know how many thousands of jobs, in certain jobs in IT, that goes unfilled. So, and again, it's a fast changing, organizations need to deliver, and if you're losing employees, that's not good. So definitely, I think there is more initiative, as I said, to fulfill life, not just job. I see that more and more in organizations, definitely.
Okay,
Yes.
that brings us to time.
Oh,
So thank you so much. I think the professor might stay around a bit longer if you have some more questions, but that was fantastic. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.